We continue our 2024 conference previews with the AAC, who for the second straight season has lost a contender to a Power 4 conference. And of course, by bringing in former CUSA members, the overall rating of the conference has dropped. But that does not mean that this conference is bad. There's plenty of good teams. You got some up-and-comers that are poised to make a statement this season, and there's even a G5 favorite to make the playoff from this conference. Now, before we get into it, you guys should know what to do by now. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and subscribe to the podcast because I do shows over there that you won't be able to get here on YouTube. And, of course, tell me in the comments your thoughts on these teams, who you think is going to win the conference, etc. If you want to keep up with my bonus content during the season, my stats, projections, picks as I make them, bonus podcasts, etc., sign up at bettingcfb.com. It's $5 a month or it's $50 for the year. Now, for each of these conference previews, I'm going to give you 3 reasons why each team might go over the number or why they might go under the number, and I'm going to give you the number of projected wins from my numbers. So, let's go ahead and dive into it. We'll start off with the Army Black Knights. Current win total is 5.5. That's down from the 6.5 opener. Odds of minus 150 to go over. That's implied probability of 60%. And plus 128 to go under. That is 43.86%. So the favorite is to go over the number here. Conference odds are plus 2,500. That's 25 to 1. That's implied probability of 3.85%. Now, for why Army might go over their win total. The return to a more traditional under-center offense should play their strengths a little bit, and it's going to fit the quarterback Bryson Daly pretty well, we think. The team should be able to leverage their rushing attack. You know, Kanye Udo, I believe, is the guy, 220-pound sophomore. I think the offense will be better this year. Number 2, the offensive line. 5 players with starting experience, which can provide some stability here. It's going to enhance their rushing efficiency, which is big for their option-based team. Number 3, coaching continuity. Jeff Monken entering into his 11th year. The reappointment of Cody Worley as the play caller. He led a pretty successful late-season surge last year. It bodes well for maintaining and improving team performance. Now, as far as why they might go under, number 1, the transition back to a more traditional offense might take some time to fully integrate, and, you could see some early season struggles. We'll see. Number 2, the defense faces significant turnover. You only got 3 returning starters back, and, of course, replacing key players is pretty challenging, right? You got 2-time leading tackler Leo Lowen and the edge rusher Jackson Powell. That's tough to replace those guys. It might lead to some defensive vulnerabilities, we could say. And then number 3, the tougher schedule, right? You got 8 conference games. You got matchups against Air Force and Notre Dame. And then, of course, Navy at the end of the year, which is a non-conference game. I mean, that's a pretty difficult path to getting to a winning record. It makes it difficult to exceed 6 wins. This is a team that typically has at least a couple of FCS teams on the schedule that they can just kind of waltz over. It's kind of difficult. You see the schedule here. I mean, it ain't easy. It sure ain't easy. Their rating is number 109 nationally. Conference rating, I've got them number 10 in this conference. Projected wins, 5.67. So I've got them slightly over the 5.5. I got them 4 games as a projected favorite. I've got them in 9 toss-up games, which is pretty nuts. I think it actually should be more than that. I think my formula is a little bit off. But, I mean, you see all these games. They're an underdog to Rice by 0.46 points. An underdog to Tulsa on the road by 1.33 points. A favorite over UAB by 1.59 points. These are all toss-up games. These are all coin flips. So, yeah, I'm a little shocked. A little bit shocked. So, yeah, Lehigh and Notre Dame are the only 2 that I think are not toss-ups. I think I had UTSA as not a toss-up game. But it was under 8 points, so you get the point. Regardless, it's going to be difficult for Army in this first season. All right, we will move on. There we go. The Charlotte 49ers. Current win total is 3.5. Of course, same as the opener. The odds are minus 142 to go over. That's 58.68% implied probability. And plus 116 to go under. That's 46.3% probability. Conference odds, plus 5,000. Got an implied probability of 1.96% on this. Now, as far as why Charlotte might go over, 27 transfers coming in. You got talented players from a bunch of P4 programs. You got the quarterback Max Brown, running back Cartavius Norton, brings an immediate upgrade in talent and a lot of potential playmakers to this team. And they really sorely needed that last year. You got a seasoned offensive coordinator here. You got promising offensive additions, right? Wide receiver Justin Olson, tight end Corey Dykes. The offense has the potential to improve significantly from last year's struggles. And the defense, I mean, despite losing some key players, they brought in, numerous 3- and 4-star prospects, as well as a Division II standout, Bushra, I believe is the guy, which could enhance their overall defensive performance. Now, as far as why Charlotte might not go over their win total, significant turnover on the roster, right? 24 transfers out, 27 in. What's the team chemistry going to be like? Who knows? Number 2, the loss of their 2 best defensive players and most of their secondary. That's tough to overcome, especially against some of these stronger AAC offenses. And you see some on the schedule here: Memphis, Tulane, FAU, UAB. FAU is questionable. USF is what I meant there. You got some teams that'll be able to put up some points for sure. And then number 3, despite that influx of talent, the team remains projected at number 127 in SP+. SP Plus says 3.2 wins. That indicates the overall improvement might not be enough to overcome the challenges posed by that tough schedule. I've got them rated number 124. I got the conference rating number 13. I've got them projected at 3.52 wins, which is slightly over, with 1 game as a projected favorite and 5 toss-up games. Curious what Biff's going to do this year. That's what I'm curious about. All right, we continue on. The East Carolina Pirates. Current win total 6.5. That is the same as the opener. It has not moved. Odds of plus 102 to go over. That's implied probability of 49.5%. And minus 124 to go under. Implied probability of 55.36%. Conference odds, plus 2,000 with an implied probability of 4.76% to win the AAC. Now, why East Carolina might go over their win total? Number 1, the defense is returning nearly the entire defensive line and several key players in the secondary. I would imagine that's going to lead to a stronger performance than what they did last year, and they were already pretty solid on defense, especially against the run last year. Number 2, despite the poor record in 2023, they were competitive in several games. They had 4 one-score losses, and you could certainly see some positive regression this season. I mean, they had 2 wins last year, and now they've got this kind of a win total. It makes sense. Makes sense. The offense was putrid. And then number 3, with 3 experienced quarterback transfers that are competing for that starting role, you get the new offensive coordinator, John David Baker. There is potential for significant improvement in this offense. Now, as far as why they might not go over the win total, I mean, you just got to look at last year, right? The offense was among the worst in college football last year. Number 132 in yards per play. They were 127 in scoring offense. And yeah, you got new transfers and you got some coaching changes. Is that going to be enough to turn things around? You would think so, but I mean, you never really know until you get it, right? So Pat Fitzgerald at Northwestern was never really able to figure it out, and it didn't matter who they had at quarterback. Number 2, the team lost key defensive players, including their leading tackler, Julius Wood, which could hinder their ability to maintain last season's defensive performance. Number 3, while the schedule is more manageable without Power 5 opponents, they still face some pretty tough games against, strong G5 teams. You got App State on the schedule. You got Liberty. UTSA is on here. I mean, this is some pretty difficult stuff, right? And UTSA is a conference game, but they're out of conference. I mean, App State and Liberty is rough. That's rough. I've got them rated number 102 nationally, number 7 in the conference. Projected wins, I've got them at 6.48, so I am slightly under, with 5 games as a projected favorite and 9 toss-up games. A lot of games that could be within a touchdown here, but they do have a pretty easy schedule. I trust Mike Houston. We'll see where it goes. Next on the board, the FAU Owls. Current win total 6.5. Has not moved. Odds of plus 108 to go over. That's 48.08% implied probability, and minus 132 to go under. Under is the favorite here, 56.9% probability. Conference odds to win the league plus 3,000. That's implied probability 3.23%. Now, for why they might go over their win total, It's a soft schedule, right? FAU's got one of the easiest schedules in the country. They play 7 teams that are projected number 109 or worse. Only one team is better than number 76. That gives them a bunch of opportunities to secure some wins here. And when you see the schedule on the screen, a lot of toss-ups here. A lot of stuff that could go right for them. Their average line for the entire season is more than a field goal favorite. So that's pretty good. Pretty good. Number 2, potential of transfers, right? The influx of a bunch of new transfers. You got experienced players. You got Cam Fancher, the quarterback from Marshall, coming over. You got Norton coming in to provide a boost in talent and depth that they need to outperform last season. And then number 3, you got experienced coaching. Tom Herman's second year might bring some better results as he settles into the program, combined with the expertise of new additions like the safety, Phillip Dunham, and defensive tackle Bryce Langston. As for why FAU might not go over the win total, massive turnover. FAU ranks 121st in returning production and is undergoing like a bunch of roster changes, which could lead to, some struggles, especially early in the year. And, you got teams like Michigan State and Army early. You go to UConn. Those aren't gimmies. So, number 2, offensive struggles. The offense has numerous question marks. That includes a quarterback competition and an almost entirely new offensive line, which might not gel quickly enough to improve big from last year's performance. And then number 3, you're losing a bunch of key players, right? Their main quarterback, leading rushers, their top receiver has gone to Colorado, key defensive players. There's a bunch of uncertainty about this team's ability to perform here. So I'm curious about it. I've got their rating at number 101. Conference rating is number 6. Projected wins, dead on 6.50. So it is right on the number. I've got them a favorite in 7 games, 9 toss-ups. That's a lot of toss-ups. A lot of toss-ups here. The Memphis Tigers are up next. Current win total 9.5. That is the same as the opener. Odds of plus 146 to go over. That's 40.65%, and minus 180 to go under. So the under is certainly the favorite here. Probability there is 64.29%. Conference odds, plus 230 to win the conference. Implied probability of 30.3%. They are the favorite to win the AAC. Now, as far as why they might go over their win total, offensive firepower is number 1, right? Memphis returns Seth Hennigan over, 3,800 yards passing last year. And, of course, the top receivers, Rock Taylor and Demir Blankumsey. It's one of the most potent offenses in the AAC, really in the entire group of 5. Number 2, bunch of transfer talent, right? 29 transfers come in. That includes impact players like Tennessee's leading tackler, Elijah Herring, and South Carolina's leading rusher, Mario Anderson. Big-time boost to the team's talent and depth. Number 3, you got a really experienced defense this year. 12 of the 19 defensive starters from last year are back. That combined with new defensive talent from the transfer portal, Memphis has got the potential to improve significantly on defense. Now, as far as why they might not go over, why they might go under this 9.5, you got tough road games. That's number 1. Memphis faces its 4 toughest opponents: Florida State, South Florida, UTSA, and Tulane, all on the road. Means securing wins in those spots is a lot more challenging. Number 2, defensive woes, right? Yeah, you got a lot of talent incoming, but the defense ranked number 111 last year. They allowed over 28 points in 8 different games. They're going to have to improve big time to be able to support this offense. Number 3, chemistry and cohesion, right? You got extensive roster turnover here. 30 incoming transfers. It might result in a lack of, team cohesion, team chemistry, whatever you want to call it. It could make it difficult for this team to perform consistently, especially early. And you got Troy, Florida State, and Navy within the first 4 games here. That's rough. The rating is number 46. Conference rating, I've got them number 1. Projected wins, I've got them at 8.71. So I've got them going under the 9.5. I've got them 10 games as a favorite here and 4 toss-up games. So you see a lot of double-digit favorites on here, but Tulane, UTSA, USF, Florida State, Troy, those are all games that could go any direction. In Florida State, you're certainly not expected to win that game. We'll keep it moving. The Navy midshipmen, their current win total is 3.5. That's the same as the opener. Odds of plus 120 to go over. That's 45.45% probability. and minus 148 to go under. Implied probability of 59.68%. So the under is certainly the favorite here. To win the conference, plus 3,000. Implied probability of 3.23% here. As for why Navy might go over their win total, number one, they've got improved offensive coordination. They brought in Drew Cronick, who he successfully led Mercer to their first FCS playoff appearance. Navy's offense has got the potential for a pretty significant turnaround. He runs the wing T offense. It's like a hybrid. Very curious what this is going to look like. Number two, you got key returning players, right? You got impactful players on both sides of the ball. That includes the running back Alex Tegza. I hope I said that right. Quarterback Braxton Woodson. And you got defensive standouts Justin Reed, at defensive end, outside linebacker Luke Pierce. Stuff like that. Those kind of players can provide some stability and experience. And then number three, defensive strength. Head coach Brian Newberry, his specialty is defense. And you got key returners like the safety Lane, the corner Peel as well. Navy's defense, which has been consistently solid forever, I would certainly expect it to maintain or maybe even improve their performance this year. Now, as far as why they might go under, number one, your offensive struggles, right? You got a new offensive coordinator, but their offense last year was number 126 in offensive SP+. You got the loss of the top two quarterbacks. It might take some time for them to gel. Luckily, they've got Bucknell and Temple to start off with. I would imagine both of those are going to be wins. Then you got a bye week before you got to deal with Memphis, and you get them at home. Number two, you got a tough schedule. The schedule is challenging. It opens up easy, but I mean, I've only got them favored in 3 games. It's going to be difficult to get over 5.5 if you're only favored in 3 games. But to get Charlotte at home, like you got a stretch there between your byes where you've got Memphis, UAB, and Air Force back to back to back. Then a bye. Then you got Charlotte before you got to head to wherever it is they're playing Notre Dame this year. Away games at Rice, at South Florida, and then you host Tulane. You play at East Carolina. That's not going to be easy. I mean, this is a tough schedule. And then number 3, high turnover and inexperience. You lost some significant players. Like I mentioned, the top 2 quarterbacks. The middle linebacker, Johnny Hodges, is gone. The team's going to have to rely on some less experienced guys. It's all guys that have been in the system, so that's good. But curious what it's going to mean for their overall consistency, right? I've got them rated number 113. Conference rating is number 12. Projected wins, I've got them at 4.66. So I've got them under with 3 games as projected favorites and 8 toss-up games. So curious to see what Navy is going to look like this season. We move on to the North Texas Mean Green. Current win total is 5.5. That is the same as the opener, so the number has not moved. You got odds of minus 134 to go over. That's 57.26% probability, and plus 110 to go under. Implied probability of 47.62%. Conference odds, plus 2,500 to win the conference. I do not expect them to win the conference. That's a probability of 3.85%. Now, for why North Texas might go over, I mean, you got strong offensive potential, right? It was a healthy 27th rating in offensive SP plus last year. You got some key players coming back. Slot receiver Blair Conwright. You got Landon Sides coming back along with the running back Ragsdale. The offense has the potential to perform pretty well, I would think, under the head coach Eric Morris, who certainly knows a thing or two about offense. And then number 2, recruitment and transfers, right? You added some significant transfers. You brought in former TCU quarterback Chandler Morris, who probably is not going to play early. And then you got 5 transfer linemen that could provide the talent boost that they need to kind of boost, push this team over their win total. And then number 3, North Texas benefits from being in a pretty prime recruiting location. They got a pool of talented players that they can recruit who can contribute immediately. I don't know what that's necessarily going to do for them this year, but I did want to toss that out there because, I mean, it's not like they don't have players around. So, we may not think much of the players that they've got right now, but they could certainly overperform. As far as why they might go under, number 1, obviously defense. They were awful. I mean, dead last in SP Plus last year. They have historically struggled on that side of the ball. I mean, they're just that's a even when Seth Luttrell was there, like they were not great on defense. Unless they perform big time. I mean, it like makes some significant improvements. Even if you could just get up to like number 100, that'd be a lot better than what they were last year. Number 2, you got high roster turnover. 54 new players are joining the team this year. Who knows what that's going to mean for chemistry, cohesion, etc. I mean, those are the buzzwords so far in these conference previews. But particularly early in the season, I mean, these players are going to need to be able to adjust, and I don't know how they're going to do that. Luckily, you got South Alabama to start off with. Stephen F. Austin comes in, should be a pretty significant favorite in that one. Who knows? And then number 3, you got the loss of key players. Quarterback Chandler Rogers is gone. The top wide receiver, Jamari Macklin, he's gone. I mean, they might result in a lack of consistency and playmaking ability on offense. It's going to be tough in some of these tight games, and I've got several of them on the schedule for them. I've got them rated number 103. Conference rating is number 8. Projected wins, I've got them at 5.4. That is slightly under. 6 games as projected favorites and 8 toss-up games. So a toss-up game, for anybody that does not know by this point in the show, toss-up game is any game that is within 8 points on either side of the line. So I figure one possession game, any play could change the outcome of that game. So we will carry on. The Rice Owls. Yes, current win total 6.5. Who would have thought that their win total would be making a bowl game, right? I mean, Mike Bloomberg's done a pretty good job there. Just significant improvement year over year. Odds of minus 134 to go over. That's 57.26%. And plus 108 to go under. That's 48.08%. So the favorite here would be to go over the 6.5, which is pretty wild because I don't remember the last time that Rice won 7 ball games in a regular season. I mean, it's been a long time. To win the conference, they are plus 2,000. That's 4.76% implied probability. Now, as far as why they might go over the win total, returning production, right? You got 33 of their top 25 tacklers coming back, or 23 of the top 25, excuse me. You got a solid core of offensive players. This is the problem with this time of year. It's like 77 degrees outside, feels great, but I feel like I have to sneeze all the time. It's just ridiculous. But you got a solid core of offensive players. That includes the running back, Dean Connors. Rice has one of the highest levels of returning production in the country. It sets the stage for, continued improvement this year. Number 2, key transfer addition, right? They're bringing in Temple transfer quarterback E.J. Warner. He's the son of course, NFL legend Kurt Warner. E.J. was good, and he could certainly provide a spark for him. I think he's better than what they had last year. And I think he'll be able to elevate that offense. I mean, he had really impressive passing stats at Temple last year. When he wasn't in the ballgame for them, they were putrid. Number 3, you got a favorable schedule here. I mean, it's just much, much easier. They're likely to be favored in 7 games that I've got them here, which means, I mean, the path to their first winning season in a decade is realistic if they can maintain their momentum against, beatable opponents. Now, as far as why they might not go over the win total, quarterback uncertainty. E.J. Warner, yes, promising, but he hadn't done anything at Rice yet. And I don't know what he's going to look like in this offense. Any kind of struggles or any kind of injuries, because he did have an injury history, that could lead to, it could derail things. We'll say that. Especially because, I mean, they lost J.T. Daniels. They lost their star receiver, Luke McCaffrey. It's not great. And then number 2, you got defensive losses, right? You got high returning production numbers, but key defenders like Carroll and Devin are going to Power 4 schools. I mean, that could weaken a defense that needs to be pretty strong, I would think, to support the team's physical style of play. And then number 3, limited upside against stronger teams. Like Rice has struggled against their stronger opponents. They were 0-6 against SP Plus top 85 teams last year. And you got several tough matchups on the schedule this year. It might be difficult to pull off some upsets, and if their rating changes throughout the year, I mean, I've got them favored in 7 games right now. That might not be the case by the end of the year, especially when you're closing out with, I mean, look at this. The last 7 games of the schedule, you got UTSA at home, you got Tulane on the road, you got UConn on the road, you got Navy at home. If they're not ready for that triple, that could be interesting. You play at Memphis, you got a bye week, and then you got 2 of the stronger offenses in the entire country in UAB and USF. It's going to be rough. Their rating, I've got them at number 91. Their conference rating, I've got them number 5 in the AAC. Projected wins, I've got them 6.64, so slightly over with 7 games as a projected favorite, as I mentioned, and 8 toss-up games. So 8 games that I expect to be, I've got gnats in here, 8 toss-up games where I expect it to be within, one possession either way. Curious about Rice. This looks to be the best Rice team that they've had there in quite some time. Next on the board, the Temple Owls. Current win total is 2.5. That is the same as the opener. It has not moved, but they are plus 116 to go over. That means only a 46.3% chance to get to 3 wins on the year, and then minus 142 to go under. Implied probability there is 58.68%. To win the conference, plus 18,000. That's 180 to 1. That's an implied probability of 0.55%. Yes, about half of 1% is their odds to win the conference. Temple is not going to win the AAC this year. You don't have to worry about that. As for why Temple might go over the win total, transfer impact, right? You got 13 new transfers. You bring in Rutgers quarterback Evan Simon. You got defensive end DeJuan Black. I mean, they've added some experience. They've added some talent. You could maybe see some immediate improvement. We'll see exactly what the chemistry looks like with these guys. But they're all in areas of pretty critical need. Number 2, you got receiver continuity, right? You return last year's leading receivers, Dante Wright and Zay Baines, which means whoever wins the quarterback battle is going to have some pretty reliable targets. And, it could help stabilize the offense if they got guys that can make some plays in space. And then number 3, defensive line potential. DeJuan Black's, breakout potential. He had 6 sacks in the spring game. Now, is that because the offensive line was so bad or just because he was overwhelming? It could be maybe a combination. He could certainly anchor a defense that really needs some playmakers. They're switching to a 4-3 scheme. Very curious about it. As for why Temple might not go over their win total, look, they lost E.J. Warner, right? 3,000-yard passer. That's a huge void. And the competition between Evan Simon and Forrest Brock, I don't know what that's going to look like. Simon coming in, I mean, he's from a P4 conference, but okay. We'll see what he looks like in this offense. Number 2, defensive inexperience. Yeah, they lost their top 6 tacklers, and they're doing a complete overhaul of the defense, right? The scheme change. They could struggle to stop even the most modest offenses, and that could be interesting because you got Oklahoma in week 1, and then you got to face not really a triple, but like a wing T with Navy. Coastal Carolina comes in, and Tim Beck he's been known to do some crazy stuff. Utah State comes in. What in the world are they going to look like under Nate Drilling? Army comes in. They're going to run their triple or their style of triple. I mean, that's some tough offenses to deal with, especially early in the season. And then finally, a challenging schedule, right? Temple is projected as an underdog in all 12 games. You got little returning production. You got a nearly rebuilt roster. I mean, it's hard to see them getting to 3 wins. I know that it's heavily favored to the under. Well, that's for a reason. Their rating, for me, nationally, is number 133. That's next to last in the entire country. Conference rating, dead last, number 14. Projected wins, because of win probability and whatnot, I've got them at 2.84, so that's over. But 0 games as projected favorite, and I've got them in 7 toss-up games. So if by chance you get something bounce your way, then maybe they could get to 3 wins. But it's tough for me to see it. I mean, it's really tough. Tickets to everything are expensive these days. And I know you're like me. You want to catch a big game or a concert, maybe even tickets to a show. Why not save some money every time you buy tickets? Visit Ticketsmarter.com or use the TicketSmarter mobile app and use the promo code WCE10, that's WCE10, to save $10 on any order of $100 or more, or use WCE20, that's WCE20, to save $20 on an order of $300 or more. It's not a one-time sign-up bonus or anything. Seriously, every time you buy tickets, you can save money on already great deals. So do yourself a favor. Think smarter with TicketSmarter. Next up, the Tulane Green Wave. Yes, current win total 7.5. That is the same as the opener. It hasn't moved. But the odds to go over are minus 152. That is 60.32%. plus 124 to go under. That is 44.64% implied probability there. To win the conference, now plus 300. Implied probability of 25% on that. Now, for why Tulane might go over the win total, John Sumrall, he's got a proven track record. He has shown he can quickly turn around programs, especially ones. There's no turning around here, right? Tulane was in the AAC title game last year. They looked pretty good in the bowl game. They got some dudes. At Troy, he won 23 games in 2 seasons, right? You got key transfers coming in. You got Ty Thompson. You got Mario Williams, the wide receiver from USC. Tulane's offense has got the potential to remain really explosive, despite the fact that they lost some pretty key pieces. You got defensive continuity, right? Retaining his Troy defensive coordinator, Greg Gasparotto, who led, top 30 defenses, at least a top 30 defense because Shield Wood was there before, and you get the point. But this is John Sumrall's defense. We'll say that. But Tulane's defense could, maintain or even improve on last year's performance, especially because they got experienced guys, right? You got Jenkins, Machado, you got Grubbs returning. Like, you got some dudes there. Strategic transfer portal use, right? Sumrall's aggressive use of the portal. He brought in 21 transfers, 6 guys for the secondary. Tulane's going to have depth and talent to compete at a high level immediately. We'll see exactly what he can do, but it certainly helps mitigate the losses of some of those key players. Now, as far as why they might go under, a lot of turnover on the offense, right? You lost the quarterback, Michael Pratt. He was Tulane's all-time leading passer. But it's not like he dealt with some injuries. He wasn't there all the time. They looked pretty good with Kai Horton at quarterback against Ole Miss. And you got the departure of the top 3 receivers. But you bring in Mario Williams. You got some guys there, so we'll see. But it could lead to, some growing pains on offense, especially if the new pieces don't gel quickly. You're probably not going to get Kansas State or Oklahoma, right, early in the season. But you got a road game against Louisiana. You could probably win that one. I've got them a slight dog in that one. But then you got USF and UAB. You need the offense humming by that point. Number 2, the secondary was rebuilt. I mentioned that he brought in 6 guys for the secondary. They lost nearly the entire secondary before that. You got the top 3 players in terms of pass breakups and interceptions. The defense certainly could be vulnerable. We'll see what the chemistry looks like back there, especially early in the season. You're going to hope that they're gelling by week 5. That's what we'll say. Regression from close wins. Look, Tulane's 4-0 record in close games last season. You got a potential regression, right? Winning tight games consistently, not the most sustainable way of doing things, especially with a new head coach and significant roster turnover. Look, I've got them rated number 64 in the country, conference rating number 3. Projected wins, I've got them at 7.29. So I've got them over with 8 games as a projected favorite, 7 toss-up games. So, we'll see. I wrote down 7.29. I don't know if it was actually 7.29 or not. And now I want to go check it out. Tulane. Yeah, 7.29. Oh, yeah, so it's slightly under the 7.5. I'm sorry. Yeah, slightly under the 7.5. I'm curious. I like John Sumrall a lot. I'm very curious what he's going to look like. All right, we'll move on. The Tulsa Hurricanes, Golden Hurricanes, if you will. Current win total is 4.5, same as the opener. You got odds of minus 118 to go over. That's 54.13%, and minus 104 to go under. That is 50.98%. So, kind of coin flippy here. Conference odds 40-1 to win the conference, plus 4,000. That's an implied probability of 2.44% on that. Let's see what we got here. Okay. As far as why Tulsa might go over their win total, you got quarterback depth, right? Veteran Cooper Lagasse joins the quarterback room. You got promising sophomores, Cardell Williams, Kirk Francis. Their offense has the potential to improve from last year, especially with Francis showing flashes late in the season. That certainly bodes well for this year. You got returning offensive weapons, right? You bring back the leading rusher, Anthony Watkins. You got a reliable receiver in Benjamin. They finished the season on a tear. And you got to trust Kevin Wilson You may not like the guy, but he knows how to build an offense. So, you added in big play threats like UTEP transfer Jeremiah Ballard. I mean, you got guys there. And then, of course, this isn't going to help this year, but they got recruiting momentum, right? They signed the 54th ranked recruiting class. That's the best in 25 years. Kevin Wilson, he's bringing in talent that they need to elevate the program, which, maybe it leads to some quicker than expected improvements, especially in the wide open AAC. But relying on freshmen is not always it's not the best way to win games immediately. I will say that. As far as why they might go under, defensive rebuild. The defense was one of the worst in the country last year. They lost nearly all of their top performers. That includes the leading tackler and their top pass rusher. The influx of transfers may not be enough to offset the loss in production. We'll see. You got offensive line concerns. Only 2 returning starters on the offensive line. Trench play is going to remain a significant question mark. And, without that solid protection, even if you got talented quarterbacks, they may struggle to execute. And then, of course, it's a tough schedule, right? 6 of their games are projected to be decided by 6 points or less. The margin for error is tiny. And if you don't make some big improvements in some pretty key areas, you can find yourself on the wrong side of those. You make the wrong penalty in some cases. If you're dealing with transfers too much or freshmen, it's going to be tough. The rating, I've got them at number 112. Conference rating, number 11. Projected wins, I've got them at 5.42. So I've got them going over. I've got them a projected favorite in 5 games with 9 toss-up games. So, you see it here. Oklahoma State in week 3, but you got Arkansas State where you're a dog on the road in week 2. That one's going to be interesting. Very, very interesting there. Home game against Army. North Texas is coming in. What does that offense look like? Luckily, you got Temple after a bye. You kind of wish you had that Temple game somewhere else on the schedule as opposed to after a bye. But regardless, you got UTSA at home the next week. Going to be interesting to see what Tulsa ends up looking like. All right, the UAB Blazers. Their current win total is 6.5. That number has not moved. Odds of plus 122 to go over. That's 45% implied probability, and minus 150 to go under. That's implied probability of 60%. Conference odds, plus 3,000 again, 30-1. That's 3.23% implied probability on that. Now, for why they might go over their win total, well, let me just tell you. The quarterback is coming back. So you got offensive consistency with Jacob Zeno returning. He completed nearly 74% of his passes. You got 4 starters back on the offensive line. That's going to ensure some stability and some protection there. Yeah, he throws behind the line of scrimmage a lot. It's not like he's dumping the ball down the field often, but he's still good and pretty reliable. 2, you got running back depth. Right, despite losing Jermaine Brown, the Blazers have got a deep and capable backfield. You got Isaiah Jacobs, you got Lee Beebe, you got LSU transfer Armani Goodwin, who's going to bring some versatility and explosiveness in. The running game should be a pretty big strength this year, I would think. And then, of course, there's a pretty favorable schedule here. UAB is expected to be a favorite in at least 6 games. You got a more experienced team. You got both coordinators back. The possibility that they could exceed last year's win total is pretty good, I would think. And my God, do they need to make a bowl game this year? Pay attention. If they can get to 7 wins on here, and that's not outside of the realm of possibilities, but if they could get to 7 wins, you don't think Trent Dilfer's going for that Fresno State job if they don't just hand it over to Tim Skipper? Just saying. As for why UAB might go under, defensive woes, right? Their defense was number 130 in points allowed per game last year. They're facing even more uncertainty because they lost a bunch of key guys. That includes both of their starting cornerbacks. It's difficult to see a bunch of improvement on that side of the ball, but year 2 under this coordinator, okay. Turnover issues were a problem. Zeno had a strong completion rate, but he had 13 turnovers last year. And if that continues, if you're giving the ball to the other team, it don't matter how effective your offense is. It's immediately ineffective if you're giving the ball away. So you can't be making crucial mistakes, especially in close games, and I expect a lot of close games this year. As far as coaching concerns, Dilfer's, I don't know of a lot of people that thought that this was a good hire. And he had his struggles in his first year. We'll see if he's able to elevate the program. If he's, he's learning on the job, right? He had never been a college coordinator. He had never been involved really with a college program. And then he came in as head coach. So we'll see. We'll see what it looks like. But as far as their rating, I've got them number 104 in the country, number 9 in the conference. Projected wins, I've got them 5.79, so that is under, with 6 games as a projected favorite, 9 toss-up games. This is going to be interesting. Like, very interesting to see exactly what this team looks like going forward. But the offense, we think, should be good, right? Speaking of offense, the USF Bulls, South Florida, their current win total 7.5. It was not that long ago that this team was winning like 1 and 2 games a year. I mean, and now they've got a win total of 7.5. Alex Golesh has done some pretty outstanding stuff. Odds of plus 118 to go over. That's 45.87 percent implied probability. And minus 144 to go under. That's implied probability of 59.02%. Conference odds, they are 7-1, plus 700 to win the conference with an implied probability of 12.5%. Now, for why they might go over the win total, quarterback excellence here. Byron Brown is a stud, and he is back after a breakout season. He threw for nearly 3,300 yards, added another 1,000 plus on the ground. USF's offense primed to be one of the most explosive in the AAC, especially with, the dual threat ability that Brown's going to bring to the table, and he's got another year in that system, right? Returning production, they're number 8 nationally in returning production, at least according to SP+. USF, they bring back almost all their key contributors, 4 starting offensive linemen, 10 defensive players with significant snaps. They got a strong foundation to build on from last year's success. And then, of course, I brought it up with Tulsa. I brought it up with some other teams. Recruiting momentum, right? They signed their best recruiting class in a decade, and it's the top group in the entire G5. Yeah, like USF is stacking some talent. Some of these guys probably can contribute immediately. They're certainly going to provide some depth, especially in a conference where depth makes a big difference in a bunch of these close games. Now, as far as why South Florida might not go over their win total, it's a fragile defense, right? There's some improvements that you see on paper, right? But USF's defense they were really bad last year. And while they returned a bunch of key players, the unit gave up way too many big plays. Any defensive lapses could certainly derail that progress. And you got some tough competition on here. Alabama and Miami in the first 4 weeks of the year. You play at Tulane in week 5. You got Memphis and UAB back-to-back at home on a Friday and Saturday in October. It's the end of the schedule. They should win they should win all 5 of those games to end the year. But curious about the beginning of the schedule. That's what I'm curious about. The offensive line concerns. The offensive line allowed 43 sacks last season. And, you got 4 starters that are returning, so that's good. But their top lineman, Donovan Jennings, is gone, and that raises concern about whether or not they can protect Byron Brown well enough for him to fully unlock his potential here. You got a tough early schedule. I mentioned that. First half of the season includes some brutal matchups here. If you get in a hole early, is momentum, how big is momentum, right? Like, do you have the momentum to exceed that win total? Because you got to win 8 games to get over. There's a reason the under is the favorite here. So I mentioned the favorable back half of the schedule. Their rating is number 85 in the country, number 4 in the conference. Projected wins, I've got them at 6.53, which is nearly a full game under. But I've got them a favorite in 7 games. That's not bad. That's certainly better than they were last year. And I've got them in 8 toss-up games. So I would imagine with the experience that they've got, more of those toss-up games are going to go their way than not. But I'm curious. All right, the UTSA Roadrunners, UT San Antonio. Current win total 8.5. That number has not moved. Same as the opener. Odds of plus 118 to go over. So you got to get to 9 wins to get over. Implied probability there is 45.87% on plus 118. Minus 144 for the under. That's 59.02% probability on that. Conference odds 5-1. That's plus 500. 16.67% probability on that. Now, for why they might go over their win total, you got offensive firepower. right? Even with Frank Harris gone, the Roadrunners have got some pretty solid quarterback options. Owen McCown looked great in that bowl win over Marshall. You got a deep running back room. I mean, it combined for 1,800 yards roundabout and 23 touchdowns last year. Gave the offense plenty of firepower. They're gonna stay competitive. Defensive potential is number 2. Yeah, they lost some key players, but UTSA returns 11 defenders who saw significant snaps last year. That includes playmakers like Joseph Evans and Jamori Robinson, who had 11 tackles for loss. I mean, their ability to disrupt opposing offenses is probably going to keep them in every game this year. And then you got a favorable schedule, right? You've got a potential to be favored in. I mean, I've got them a favorite in 11 games. I've got them favored over Memphis by almost a full point. I mean, UTSA's got a schedule that sets up well for a strong year, especially if you can get through the early part of that schedule. They should be in the hunt for the AAC title game. You got Texas in week 3, Texas State in week 2. I mean, I got them a 2-point favorite on the road there, but Texas State looks like they're going to be pretty good this year. At East Carolina, yeah, they're favored by 6 points, or I've got them by about 6 points. I'm curious about that. Like, what is that going to look like? So, as for why they might not go over their win total, quarterback transition, right? Yeah, you're losing an all-time great in Frank Harris. And while McCown certainly looked good, I mean, what's he going to look like as the full-time starter, right? There's a risk the offense could regress. And we'll see. I mean, it's a receiving core that's missing its top wideout. So who knows what they're going to look like. Defensive losses, right? Your top pass rusher, Trey Moore, went off to Texas however long ago. Their best secondary player, Cam Alexander, he's headed over to Oregon. I mean, defense might be vulnerable. They got the bodies for sure. I mean, as far as height, weight, like what they're supposed to look like, they got it. I'm just curious if they're going to be able to replicate last year's success, right? And then you got potential distractions, right? I mean, Jeff Traylor's always been linked to these high-profile jobs. If Baylor fires Dave Aranda early in the season, does that start the back and forth between Traylor and Baylor? Maybe. Who knows? So there's always a risk that distractions or something like that could disrupt the team's focus and their performance. And this is, I mean, they got a chance to have a really promising season, but we'll see. I've got them rated number 54 nationally. Conference rating is number 2, and projected wins, I've got them at 8.37, which is slightly under the 8.5. But I've got them a favorite in 11 games, and I've got them in 5 toss-up games. So I see 6 guaranteed wins. With Temple, North Texas, Tulsa, FAU, Houston Christian, and Kennesaw State. Outside of that, the other ones are going to be kind of tough, right? Army, I would expect them to win, but that one is on the road at the end of the year. Memphis, that one's at home, but Memphis is the best team in the conference. Playing at Rice, at East Carolina, at Texas State. That's tough. And then probably a guaranteed loss at Texas. But that is the week after Texas plays Michigan, so you never know. Let's see. As far as the conference title game, I'm going to take UTSA. I'm going to take UTSA and Memphis to get to the title game, and I'm going to take Memphis to win the AAC, and I'm going to take them to make the playoff. They are 7-1 to make the playoff right now, plus 700 to do that. I've got a ton of faith in Seth Hennigan at quarterback for the Tigers, along with the skill position players that they've got there. So I may not fully trust the coach, but I think this is the most talented roster in the G5. I think they're going to win the conference. I think they're going to go to the playoff. Even if they got 2 losses, which I think is likely, I think that they could absolutely get there regardless of whether Liberty is undefeated or not. I think that they are going to be higher rated than Liberty. All right, let's go and get out of here. Like the video. Subscribe to the channel, of course, and the podcast. And if you want to help out the show, you can do that. You can be a member at bettingcfb.com. It's $5 a month, $50 for the year, and I'm going to be posting a ton of stuff over there. So, for Winning Cures Everything, of course, God bless college football, and I'm going to see you on the next one. Thanks for listening to Winning Cures Everything. Make sure and follow me on Twitter at GaryWCE. If you want to toss in a question, you can email me, Gary@winningcureseverything.com. Make sure and hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you next time.